Welcome to the Tech Sales Show, dedicated to making you a better seller. Recorded 4,827 miles across the Atlantic Ocean with Bobby Doss from Houston, Texas, a father, husband, golfer, pilot, and tech seller. And Brian Evans, an expat in London, England, family man, 2X Ironman, and an ERP salesman. Both sharing tried and true sales strategies and providing free tools to make each week and campaign easier for you. They also answer your questions weekly. Now, here is Bobby and Brian.
Hey, Bobby.
What's up, Brian?
Well, we got an interesting episode today. So, off the heels of having a fantastic guest in Phil Wilhelm. So, thanks again, Phil, for joining the podcast, sharing all of your insights, sharing your audience with us too. It was fantastic to have a number of new listeners join, subscribers to the email, visitors to the websites. It's been great from that standpoint. It was great to have Phil's insights. So we both want to thank Phil very much for joining the podcast.
Yep, thank you very much, Phil. It was a total blast. I can't wait for round two.
Yes, and so some of you may have noticed on YouTube, we just started posting our podcast. That was a request that came in from the listeners. So if you consume your podcasts or if you use YouTube for audio listening, you can now check out our podcasts. So subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can find our YouTube channel by going to bobbyandbrian.com. You'll see it there on the websites. So yeah, thanks for subscribing to us. If we're trying to get to a certain number, if you can help us by subscribing to that will help us do some things technically that we've been trying to accomplish here over the first few months.
Yeah, so today, as Brian mentioned, it's a special episode. We're kind of going to do some recapping of what we've done over the last 90 days. If we tricked you, great, but we don't really record all of these on the day we publish them. We record them about a week early, and today is April 1st, no fooling. And it's Easter Sunday, and Brian's at his home in Windsor, United Kingdom, drinking a glass of wine, and I just wrapped up lunch here in Houston, Texas. But we want to give everybody kind of a look back. There's a lot of new listeners, and share with you what we've done to this point. Literally on January 1st, a quarter ago, I was in Brian's home, and we recorded our very first episode of the Tech Sales Show. So join us on this journey of recapping where we've come from. I bet there's a ton of tools and a ton of artifacts that you guys aren't aware of, because we didn't know exactly how to share all that in the most prolific way when we first started this thing, but we've gotten a little bit better, we hope.
Yeah, so Bobby, to your point, what we're going to recap is really four things. We're going to hit the podcasts that we've done at a really high level. We'll be navigating through the website to talk through the tools that we've added. All these are free tools. We'll talk about a couple of the services we have out there. And then we'll finish with the videos that we've recorded that we'll continue to add. That continues to be a big part of what people visit Bobby and Brian for, are the videos and the tools. So Bobby, let's jump right into it. The first series that we hit was Impeccable First Meeting Preparation. And this was our first series, so it was fun to do. It was fun to build out. It's a multi-episode podcast that we did, 4 episodes. And really it was all about, we all worked so hard to get that first meeting with a new prospective customer or an existing customer that we're taking over. This series is all about properly investing the time to get the most out of that meeting. It will set you up for success. If you apply some of these principles, even a few of these principles, you'll be so much more effective when it comes to building out new customer relationships and being most prepared for these visits.
Yeah, and I guess the first podcast we ever did, and we'll rewind, right before meeting prep, was really the introduction to the course, or introduction to the Bobby and Brian website and the Tech Sales Show. The goal was to take people hopefully from an average style to an impeccable style, to be the best that you can absolutely be. And that's what we did, and that's what our tools did from that first series. We'll talk about those tools in just a second. The second series, same concept, go from average to impeccable, and it was all about territory planning. Both Brian and I were working on our territory plans for our respective companies, and we thought what a great time to maybe generalize those tools, share those tools with everybody. That too was a multi-episode series where we did 4 episodes and gave a lot of stuff away to help you with your territory plans as well.
Indeed. From that, Bobby, we flipped over to the listener's choice episodes. So we've had a number of questions that come in week to week. We're taking some of these questions and we're turning them into podcasts. This first one, the first listener's choice, was all about email correspondence and how do you convert, basically, how do you convert an email conversation into an actual customer meeting? So we provided a number of templates, actually 4 templates across 2 episodes there. So check those out on the websites, bobbyandbrian.com/email tips.
And then the next listener choice we did was about negotiating tips and tricks. Another listener asked us to provide some thoughts and ideas on how to stop the negotiations and then how to maybe control the conversation a little bit better. We put out a book review that Brian posted on a great book, That You Can Negotiate Anything by Herb Cohen. That's in our book review section. And then that listener choice is two parts. Great podcast as well if you want to learn a little bit about how to negotiate.
Yep, and that was a new book for me, Bobby. I enjoyed getting into that. The book reviews have been fun in general. I would highly encourage you to all read that book. It was interesting for me. It was one that I'd kind of had on the list forever, but just hadn't taken the time to review it.
So next, something else that kind of changed in our thought process was we decided we would do interviews of other great sellers that were in our networks or that you recommended that we interview. And we've recorded 3 interviews so far. The third one will be published in a couple of weeks on April the 16th, and that's going to be a great guest. The first one we did was a huge friend and fan of mine, and I'm a fan of hers, was Nadine Cherry. She works for CDW. Very interactive episode. We can't wait to record that part 2 either. And her boost from her network was really good for the Tech Sales Show and our website, bobbyandbrian.com. We just did Phil Wilhelm last week. Hopefully a lot of you are new listeners because of Phil's network that he shared it with. And then, as I said, on the 16th, Jennifer Hurd, our previous coach, mentor, and friend from Microsoft, will be on the podcast as well in her interview.
Really enjoyed those interviews, Bobby. It was fun to get their insights, to just take 30 minutes, 45 minutes with them each, learn about what's made them so successful. Had a ton of great feedback from the listeners as well. So if you have somebody that you think we should be interviewing, shoot us a note, info@bobbyandbrian.com.
Yeah, so what's coming for the podcast? We already have the next 2 series slated. As Brian mentioned, we've got a bunch of interviewees on slate to be interviewed. But the next podcast series will be Sales Process. It's going to be really the inner workings of the process from finding that opportunity to closing that opportunity. I think we have good artifacts and great tips and tricks to help hold your campaigns on track in that Sales Process podcast series.
Yep, the one after that will be around career developments. Career development is going to be all about kind of 4 stages to your career. How do you, based off where you're at in your career, at the company you're with, what things do you need to be working on personally, professionally? What does your mentor network need to look like? This has been a fun series to work on. I'm really looking forward to rolling this out here over the next couple months.
Perfect. So let's jump into the meat of what we really wanted to talk about with everybody today. And that's really the tools and the services that we've put together. It's funny, we've heard feedback that most of our listeners haven't been aware of the things that we've been doing on our website. So either they're podcast listeners and they never have been to our website or don't go to it very much, or someone's found our YouTube channel and they keep looking for other information that we talk about, but they're not really sure where it is. And maybe we confuse things by having a podcast called The Tech Sales Show and a website called bobbyandbrian.com, but they're all the same thing and they're all tied together. So let's talk through the tools. Brian, what did we provide our listeners when we did the first series, Impeccable First Meetings?
The first thing we rolled out was, it was based off the first series, right? So the first series was Impeccable First Meetings. And in part of the first episode, we talked about the basics around meeting prep. So what we published and what we put together was a meeting prep checklist. So go to bobbyandbrian.com/tools to get any of these. And that meeting prep checklist included a number of things. So if you're about to meet with a company, what things should you be looking for? What resources, both on their websites and publicly listed information, should you be researching ahead of that meeting? If you're about to connect with a contact there, are you doing your research around that specific contact? We've got a number of questions and items that you can kind of check off to get fully prepared for that actual meeting.
Yeah, and to continue that series, we, in the next episode, talked about a lot of things, but we released a document with 50 goals and desired outcomes to help you come up with ideas and things to seek to understand during that first meeting. And we also gave you a meeting prep template for your execution around that meeting. Who's the attendees? What are the things that I'm going to try and accomplish? We did that in OneNote, Evernote, and even showed you how I write it in my Moleskine notebook when I go meet a customer.
Old school.
Old school. And we wrapped up that series with really another tool called the Meeting Prep Playbook, kind of an all-encompassing document to wrap the arms around all of it. And then we also released some services. Talk about the services, Brian. The first service we released was called Quick Prep. What is that for the users?
Yeah, Bobby, Quick Prep is a great free tool that we've released, and you built it, so thanks for building that out and loading it on the site. But basically, it's a way for you to plug in contacts and companies that you're meeting with, and if you want to get a quick set of information on them, you can just type that information in, click Submit, and it will launch a number of browser windows for you to then go and quickly research the company and people you're about to meet with.
And I like to send it to my virtual team members as they're going to a meeting, so they at least do that as a minimum level of prep before they go on a meeting. And then we released another service called Prospect 360 at the end of that series, that it really is a service that we use our virtual assistants to go do a bunch of more in-depth research on customers, contacts, and things that the company's doing as it relates to their 10K and their business. Put it all together in one document that's not branded. It's your document. You can use it, and it'll save you a ton of research time. It's a paid-for service, but it's only $40 and should save you tons of time. Nobody has to use it. We're just recouping our costs from our virtual assistants, but we hope you try the service as well.
Yeah, if you're an enterprise account exec, this is a great way for you to get a quick handle on maybe 4 or 5 accounts that you have. Maybe you've just been assigned a new territory for the fiscal year and you want to do research on those top 4 or 5 accounts. This is a great way to do that. So Bobby, next we have videos. You've got some infamous ones, some that date back a decade since I've been working with you, that we finally have now in video. The first one was probably the most popular one. I had a number of friends reach out to me, say it was gold. Talk us through the tips and tricks that you've published.
Yeah, so this is from our YouTube channel. We ask you all to subscribe, please. We're almost to our goal of 100 subscribers, and anything there would help us tremendously. But the 1-minute delay for Outlook is one that almost everyone knows me for, or knows that I've introduced it to them somewhere in their career. It is a way to delay all your outgoing mail by 1 minute in your outbox. And we know we've all forgot an attachment. We've all known we forgot to say something, or maybe said something we didn't want to say and wish we could get that email back. If you implement this tip, it will delay all your outgoing mail by 1 minute, and it's fantastic. The other video that's got a lot of positive feedback is my tips and tricks video on Quick Parts. In that video, I show everybody how to do their follow-up as a one-click insert or a autocorrect with words in Outlook, to where all of the formatting, all of the to-dos, all the action items show up in just 1 second. I think everybody in sales should use Quick Parts, and hopefully we'll have a whole lot more videos on that in the future.
Yeah, so for what that means is if you're in Outlook, which we all are all day long, and you're about to write that follow-up email for the customer that you met yesterday, and more specifically the 8 customers you met in the past week, you can hit a certain combination of keys, and that autocorrect, Bobby, will then pop up a follow-up template already built into Outlook. It's really cool. It'll save you a ton of time. So spend the 5 minutes watching that video.
Other videos out there, Brian's created a great video on how to read a financial statement and a 10K. Really quick brief. If you haven't done that or don't know exactly how to do that, you should go watch his video. We put a video out on the top 5 apps that all tech sellers should have on their phone. And we have more coming. We'll do mail merge in the coming week and many Excel tips and tricks. If you have something you'd like us to show you, don't hesitate to send it to info@bobbyandbrian.com.
Yeah, man, Bobby, the last one there on the videos is the Pipeline Planning and Execution Workbook. So this was a deliverable that we had out of our second series on territory planning. And this is a format that I've used for at least 5 years of how I manage all of my prospective customers, the process I take them through, the pipeline workbook, and then my execution plan. It's all in a Google Sheet that I use. I shared it in an Excel file. But this will help you with a living, breathing document that you can use to manage your territory, your pipeline, and how you go to market in your business.
Yeah, we kind of skipped the tools of the territory podcast, but we'll jump back to that now. We did a territory planning checklist, very similar to the meeting prep checklist. Everything on one page that you need to do your territory planning. We released a partner visualization. If you work with partners, the way you share your territory with partners will really help you do your territory planning. And what else did we release during that territory planning section, Brian?
We released the full book. So basically, we talked about the partner visualization chart that you used forever, Bobby. We talked about the pipeline planning and execution workbook. We talked about the checklist. So as you're putting together your checklist, what are the core areas that you need to focus on? I had somebody reach out to me just last week to say this is a sales manager that had her team use our workbooks and have their entire team built out one by one, the territory plan. So have a look at that. We've got some great deliverables in there, and it's all based off feedback that we've had from you over the past many months.
And Brian mentioned it, but continuing on that tools page, we also released 4 email templates that you guys can use, take advantage of to help turn your email conversations with customers into face-to-face meetings. The tools page is by far the most visited on our website, and we don't even think we've done a good job of sharing with everybody. So we hope you get an understanding of what's out there now, and we'll go check out the tools page. The next thing I want to talk about briefly is really our book reviews. Something Brian and I both believe has helped us become successful in our career is really the books that we've read and the insights we've learned from these authors. There's probably a half dozen book reviews out there today, and we both have many to do in the future, and we're going to continue to release them. What's your favorite book review so far, Brian?
Well, my favorite book is The Challenger Sell. That was the first one we rolled out. I think there are so many different sales methodologies out there. Matt Dixon is in an event that he spoke in many years ago, and the way he goes to market and expresses the way sellers need to engage with their customers is spot on. It could not be more accurate. This is a quick read. It's something that whether you're an introvert, an extrovert, no matter what sales process you use, this book is incredibly valuable. So check out the review, read the book. It's worth its weight in gold.
And the favorite one that I've done so far really was How to Become a Rainmaker. It was a book I know I read probably 10 years ago. I knew it hit a lot of points for me back then, and to reread it and to do the book review again, I thought, God, this is a book I should be reading every year. If you haven't read How to Become a Rainmaker, it is a great book with a ton of tips. You got to get it.
I took the chance to reread How to Win Friends and Influence People, which has, as we said on our Facebook post, that has the funniest title of any book. So if you've not heard of this book, it was written, I think, 1936 or something, by Dale Carnegie. It's an amazing book. It's really not all about sales. It's really all about, it's about how you engage with people, how you talk to people, how you build relationships, and the truths that you tell there. So it's a great read. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, you definitely need to read that. I've got my 13-year-old son reading it now. That's how important it is to me.
Well, if you've got him reading it, then everyone listening to this podcast should read it for sure. So we talked about a lot. The goal was that everybody understood just how many tools we had out there and hopefully found your way to our tools site and get to use those tools for yourself. Everything's free except Prospect 360, and that's just because we're recovering our costs of a virtual assistant. If you guys have any ideas for tools you want us to do, let us know and we'll put them out there. Next week at this time, we'll have Jennifer Hurd and her interview. That's going to be on April the 16th. And the next 2 podcast series will be Sales Process and Career Development, coming out probably over the May and June timeframe consecutively.
That's right. We're really looking forward to these 2 next series. This was directly voted on by the listeners. It's been fun to build out. So if you had feedback or thoughts on these while we're rolling out the episodes, please let us know. We'd love to incorporate your feedback in it. And with that, Bobby, please, as you called out before, if you're checking out our stuff on YouTube, subscribe to that channel. We'd love to have you on our mailing list. I think the people that are on the mailing list would tell you that we don't spam you. I think we've sent out only 3 or 4 emails this year. We really use it sparingly because we don't like to be spammed ourselves.
Yep. And finally, if you have feedback for us, please do so either on our website, on our feedback page, or shoot us an email to both of us will get the email if you send it to info@bobbyandbrian.com. And until next week, don't forget, average is the enemy.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Sales Show with Bobby and Brian. Subscribe to their email list by going to bobbyandbrian.com and follow them on Twitter @BobbyBrianSales.